I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Bound for Glory on Sin's only AFL football show. Massive show to get through today. All the rounds football so far. We'll preview today's games, and we'll also try and make a bit of sense of this investigation into the Essendon Football Club. I'm joined by the other panellists.
Matt Joyce.
Ashley Craven.
Jordan Keneal.
David Jackman.
I think, guys, how good, and we'll start off on the football last night at the MCG. Geelong, we wait for it and we wait for it and we wait for it, but when is it going to come? The fall. When?
They're good. I'll give them that. They were very good last night. And it's the older brigade. You know, Tom Hawkins didn't really stand out. Pozzielli didn't really stand out. Even Selwood didn't really stand out. It was the younger brigade of, Christensen, Motlop, Stokes, those young players that really, Mitch Duncan, that played a great game, and that's what got them over the line, and that's what they just need every week. They have amazing depth.
I think it was that third quarter again. Was it that third quarter again? The same thing happened against Collingwood?
Not really. No, I don't think so. Am I allowed to go on my rant yet?
I think we'll let you go on your rant first, and then we'll build around it.
So Ash and Damon have been to a game this year with me already. Round 1, Richmond-Carlton. I'd like to think that I'm not a one-eyed supporter.
No.
I can see when things are paid that shouldn't be paid, and things that should have been paid. That was the most disgraceful night of umpiring I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, that's not to take away from Geelong and how they performed all night, as well as a few fundamental errors that Richmond made. Probably could have given away 3 less goals or kicked another 2 or 3. But the umpiring up to half-time, Richmond had 4 free kicks. And it was incredibly inconsistent. Things that were being paid in Geelong's favour weren't paid in Richmond's favour. In one occasion, Chris Newman was sling-tackled after he disposed of the ball. Martin marked it 20 metres out directly in front, and it was a free against Newman in 50 metres.
Yeah.
Now, what could possibly justify that to happen? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. James Kelly was holding Floston at every contest. Taylor Hunt was holding Brett Delidio at every contest. Joel Selwood was sitting on top of Trent Cotchin at every contest. It was farcical, honestly.
I think, and I'm not sure if you got to see the North Melbourne-Port Adelaide game or you got to see the Adelaide-Hawthorn game, but I can't recall a day in which there was so many average decisions on end.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I can't wait for Monday morning to wait for... And, everyone's going to say, oh, this is just a Richmond supporter ranting. I think everyone is a bit confused at what's happening in the game at the moment. We're just not sure what's a free kick and what's not, or what's this interpretation doing when you've already called it another way. There's a lot of rules that we need clarification on, and I don't think that Jeff Geeshan can come out Monday saying the umpires have done well up to the first 6 games of the weekend.
When I'm finished my assignment that's due Tuesday, I'm going to watch the video of the game, and I'm going to make a compilation of all the abysmal free kicks that were in that game. I'm not kidding. I'm going to do it.
Just on the North Melbourne and Port game, there was 38 free kicks to 15 in North's favour. So there's...
I go for North Melbourne, and I'll always put that on the table before I say something. And that was ridiculous. Port Adelaide was so hard done by yesterday.
And what about the previous week as well against the Hawks? North got 33 and Hawks got 15.
As I said yesterday, umpiring now it's a roulette wheel, and you either win the jackpot or you just go bust. And the last couple of weeks, teams have just gone bust instead of it being... there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and they need to be addressed quickly because people are starting to get very frustrated.
It's a very contentious issue. I mean, if you've got your opinion, text us in 0427 767 767 or use sin.org.au to give us your thoughts. What do you think, Jordan, of the issue?
Look, yesterday in the Bombers and GWS game, we saw the slide tackle, the slide-in rule come into full effect, and I think there was the first really obvious, free kick there that should have been paid, and it was paid. And for me, that's the first time this entire season we've actually seen the really correct call come in for that.
And even then, it was far short.
It was taking away a player's natural instinct of there's the ball, I need it. It's like they're dogs basically. They say ball, I need ball. So
I think on that note, we'll go back to the Richmond Geelong game. Ash, what did you get out of it?
Corey Enright and Stevie J on their 200 and 250th games, they did absolutely fantastic. Stevie J, just at his absolute best, had 31 disposals and kicked 2 goals, so he was very good yesterday.
I think on that, the dominance from those players shown after half-time, especially I thought Alan Christensen was fantastic. 28 touches, ran at 79%, 6 clearances, 7 tackles, 4 marks, 3 goals. A sensational game from a player that he burst onto the scene. He sort of fell away a little, as new players do, because they're obviously not going to play at a rigid consistency in that early phase of their career. But he was fantastic last night. And here's some stats after half-time, which really indicate which way the game went. Marks inside 50, 12-4 Geelong's way. Disposal efficiency, Geelong 77, Richmond 71. Clearances, 24-15 Geelong's way. Inside 50s, 30-16 Geelong's way. You win very few games of football when those sort of stats occur in a half.
You win very few games of football with no ruckman as well, which was the case. I mean, Vickery got basically knocked unconscious towards the start of the second half. Lost about a quarter of his blood volume in one contest, and Marich was never right. He did something with his knee, but he still played on, which was very admirable. We had Luke McGuan in the ruck, and when Vickery went out, all of the structure for Richmond's forward just went. So might see Aaron Edwards get a call up next week. He kicked 3 goals and got 16 marks in the VFL, so very good.
Interesting stat also, Geelong scored 95 of their points from turnovers to Richmond's 37, so you could tell that Richmond were definitely not on their game yesterday, and that those turnovers really did affect them and their final result.
Even Cotchin was making basic errors, which is quite remarkable.
I haven't seen that before.
Well, he's clearly not right. His knee was heavily strapped up. I think Richmond should rest him, honestly.
Well, just quickly, before we move on to the next game, what do both teams take from this? Geelong,
amazing.
Can we say again that they're
still contenders?
They're still contenders, but I don't know. I think this year the contenders seem more. They've lost a bit of their invincibility. Like Hawthorn, they got last 2 weeks they've played pretty average.
Still got the wins though.
That's still wins, exactly. You do get wins, but you don't want to use that as a measuring stick for your own form. You've got to build on that. But yeah, Geelong. Can anyone see them falling away from this start?
They don't have a downfall because they're obviously the key forwards in Hawkins, Podsiadly didn't play too well last night. But yesterday in the Magoos, Nathan Vardy came back and kicked 6. George Burberry, he's a rookie forward for them. He's small forward. He kicked 6. Shane Kirsten, one of their high forward draft picks, he kicked 4. They're fantastic. And just something I'd like to raise about Nathan Vardy and Alan Christensen. They were picked 40 and 42 in the same draft. They both had fitness concerns coming into it. They both had a bit of issues with their skin folds, and I think that's why they went not late, but they could have went higher on potential. I just think that it's time that recruiters look towards more picking on talent rather than on athleticism.
Talent doesn't go away. You can get rid of fat. Within 1 or 2 pre-seasons, that fat's gone. But you can't teach a player how to, kick around the corner.
Can we stick that quote on gyms around Australia? Talent is always there, but fat can go away.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people try and draft athletes, and they're not going to get any better at the game. It's going to be the footballers that really stand out. I
think the thing that I took from that game is that Geelong don't need to rely on their forwards in order to score. Tom Hawkins didn't have any he had only 2 goals yesterday, and they were late in the game, so that reliance upon midfielders to kick goals was really integral to how the game played out.
Rance was decent, yay! After having a shocker the past 2 weeks.
And just on that as well, 11 goals came from Geelong midfielders, whereas with Richmond only 2 came from the midfield, which is a differential of 8 goals, which the margin turned out to be 7.5 goals. So there's your game.
Yeah, it was the turnovers was the killer in my opinion.
Speaking of that's the game, North Melbourne down in Tassie yesterday, they did a very good job at trying to lose a game of football that they really should have killed off quite early. And again, it's an issue that they need to arrest. They have a spread and a midfield dominance that can crack teams, but when there's a 5-6 goal lead, they can't. And to borrow a Dwayne Russellism, there's no kill shot. They can't find the kill shot.
It's not good enough. But I mean, it's basically it was a case study of what the teams have shown so far this year. So Port have never given up, and North have faded every single game. I mean, Port's, I think, 2 wins. 2 wins have come directly from, big fourth quarter comebacks, and they nearly did it again. And North Melbourne just, I don't know what's wrong with it. Did they have a fitness issue, or is it they switch off, or?
I don't want to say that it's all fitness. There's definitely a mental component to it. But some of those players, and it's not necessarily pressure is applied to the ball carrier, it's pressure is applied to the ball receiver. So when there's a handball out wide, there's always teams know where to stick and how to set up defensively against North Melbourne, and they can flick that switch and North will stop running and you can go the other way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they need to arrest.
That's why Sirakoski's getting a bit more time this year, because he's an amazingly fit guy.
I think that's part of the case. He's also in that group of players that the coaching staff think can hit a target, and that's definitely North Melbourne are a great running side, but kicking. I think long kicks, they've got a lot of good players, Wells, Zeeble, Atley. Short kicking, there's very few there that can get the job done.
I think that one thing to take from that game was how good is Travis Boak. I think since becoming captain, he's just lifted his game to another level. He had 30 disposals yesterday and was just absolutely everywhere. I think it was hard for North to cover him, sort of. How did you see that one?
I think I think that whole midfield group has improved because they've added Wingard and Wines. I think when the focus of opposition players are going to go to a player like Hartlett now, you've got Boak who knows he needs to step up and he knows he needs to lead the way. So he's there every centre bounce, and when he's not there, you've got players that can step in. Port didn't have that last year. You had players like Paul Stewart even got a run in the midfield for a bit, and he's not necessarily a midfield player. They were one-dimensional players, but when you add X factor like Wines and Wingard, it's going to make, to finish off that great inside ball winning, they're going to look better. All players are going to look better.
Just on midfield, obviously Wines and Wingard have really risen to the occasion, but someone that I like to really pump up is Ben Cunnington. First couple of years he wasn't abysmal, but he wasn't really ready for AFL. But yesterday he really stood up, and I think he's going to be a real great player.
Yeah, I think on Ben Cunnington, when North Melbourne are under fire, it's always, okay, what's Swallow going to do? What's Petrie going to do? What's Scott Thompson going to do? It's always those 3 players. But to see someone else go, okay, no, I've got to put my hand up. He won that free kick with 1:30 left, and that essentially killed the game. He put his head over the ball and he won a high free kick, and that's all you really need to ask for, someone to save the game and stand up who's not the regulars.
And he's fearless. That's what I love about him. And hopefully the sliding rule doesn't hinder him and his ability to go at the ball.
On the opposite end, someone who's been pumped up this year has been Westhoff, and he was pretty quiet yesterday. So was it just a phase and we all got our,
he's a riddle. He's a riddle.
Got our hopes up.
He was, and I know the quality of opposition, and that does play a large factor to it, but he was moving so well. And I think he provides a target, and I think even when he's not playing well like yesterday, I think he still has a really integral role in that team, that he has to act as a target. If the ball goes long to him, he's got to make the contest. He doesn't take the mark. He's got to provide a spill, and for the smaller players to create around him like a need or something. I I think he's a mystery.
What do you think the difference has been? Have teams found him out now after the early rounds where he's performed well?
I think teams have, because he often leads wide to the wing, and I think teams have often, the way they've set up defensively, they've figured out that they've got to prevent Port from pushing wide, because they've got players like Need that will run and kick that ball in, not necessarily centre it, but they'll kick it in wide. And I think North Melbourne did really well yesterday. They put a man in front of Schultz and they put a man in front of Westhoff.
Let's move on to the Collingwood-St Kilda game on Friday night. Pies wrapped that one up, and we saw Dale Thomas come back into form, played off the half-back flank, had something like 28 uncontested possessions, and really set up the play. But he said that he was playing defensively first, like really being accountable for his man, and he and Shaw basically just having to kick around in the back half.
It was so good to see that Collingwood could cope without Tuvey, and that they did have that defensive pressure without having to rely on Tuvey. You could put Thomas in the back and he could just step up like that. So it was really good to see that.
It was a decent win by Collingwood, and players who weren't, who have been rotating in and out of the best 22, they did stand up on Friday. And I also think that I really don't like Collingwood's tempo footy. I think the first half St Kilda had their measure when they were forced to play on terms because of the defence. The defence of the opposition was that good. They're very ordinary, Collingwood, and I think they really need to. They'll be a better side when Beams and Ball come through, but that's something that needs to be arrested. When the game's going against them and they try to slow it down, they turn the ball over a lot, and that you're not going to go far in finals if you turn the ball over a lot under pressure.
I think it's just the last 5 in the 22 that played really that are holding them back, and it will get better once they get the Ball, the Beams, I want to say Didac, but who knows?
You don't know what you're going to get with Didac.
Yeah. But speaking of good players, how good has Nick Riewoldt been this year? I mean, Nathan Brown has monstered him in every final that he's played, but he couldn't keep up with Riewoldt on Friday night, and it was quite ridiculous.
I think Bar was a very ordinary game, but those moments where, especially early in the last quarter, where Nick Riewoldt really looked to drag St Kilda back into it and maybe even over the line, that was the most scintillating part of the game. It really it drew my interest because he's playing not in his best form. I've seen him play better, but he's showing signs.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Showing signs.
Well, he's having some career best averages to round 6. He's got he's averaging 18 possessions a game, which is the most for him, like in the first 6 rounds of a season. He's kicked 18 goals, so 3 a game. That's the most for him up to round 6. He's marking, and it's just he's back to, I wouldn't say career best form, but his averages are up there with his career best.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about Justin Kazitsky?
He was walking.
Shitski.
He was walking in the second half. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, the ball was 10 metres from him and he was walking around.
I'm going to say something outlandish here, but I think
that's okay. That's his show. Yeah.
I think Justin Kazitsky has played his last game. He'll be suspended, I think, and I don't think St Kilda will just risk it with him anymore. He's not putting in the effort. He's doing stupid things like hitting people and just getting suspended. So I just don't think that he should be given a game when there's young kids on the list that can do a much better job than what he can.
One of those players is Tom Hickey. Surprised that he hasn't played. He was named as emergency.
He's played very well in the VFL as well, so that's good.
Is it Spencer White in the VFL?
Yeah, as well. The next Franklin.
The next Franklin. Considering that goal,
he's got a contender for goal of the year already.
It's hard to.
It's a shame about Cozzy. He's 3 games shy of 200, so
probably the luckiest man to reach 200 games
if he does. Rocker.
If he makes it. Anthony had his days where he was on.
At least he could kick.
I can't recall a game where Justin Kazitsky really grabbed it by the throat and said, "No, I'm going to win this for my team." I really struggle to think of a game. Yeah, I think he may have played his last game. That's not an outlandish statement. It looks like the end for Justin Kazitsky.
Nick Dalsano, he only had 16 touches and was held to 44% efficiency. He was tagged by Brent McCaffer. He's been, during the week, Waters came out and said that Milne and Dalsano need to lift, and Dal, one of the senior players, probably St Kilda's most classy players, absolutely shocking.
He was he well held? Was he tagged? Oh, because I wasn't.
He was tagged by McCaffrey.
McCaffrey was probably one of the best on ground, honestly. He influenced going both ways, and Lenny Hayes being a laid out as well definitely influenced.
That'll hurt them for the next 2-3 weeks in Kilda. That will hinder any chance that they have. I'm not sure who they have in the next 2-3 weeks off the top of my head, but it will sort of hinder, if it's against better sides, the way to stay competitive.
They have Carlton next week.
Oh, well, considering the strengths of Carlton's midfield, that's going to be a very uphill battle for them. I think on that note, keep sending in your texts 0427 767 767 or find it on the website www.sin.org.au. We'll get to reading them out a bit later and we'll discuss them in length. We'll be back right after these messages.
From 6 p.m. every Friday, it's the Weekend Warriors. To better learn who your hosts are, here is a helpful interview.
Tom, could you give us 5 words to describe yourself?
Charming, wise, sexalicious, marvellous, and modest. Just kidding, guys. I'm not that wise.
The Weekend Warriors, from 6 every Friday on Sin.
Call Rosadactyl.
Calling Rosadactyl mobile.
Yo, Rose, where you at? Yo, Till, I'm over here. I'm in.
Let the beat drop.
The birds. 9 to 10 a.m. Tuesdays, 90.7 Sin Radio.
Sin's international feature album of the week, Colin Stetson, New History Warfare Volume 3, to see more.
Saxophonist and touring member for Arcade Fire, Bell Orchestra and Bon Iver, Colin Stetson releases the final instalment to his New History Warfare series, with 4 tracks featuring vocals from Justin Vernon.
Listen to the international feature album, Colin Stetson, New History Warfare Volume 3, to see more, all this week on Sin.
You're on Bound for Glory on Sin. Text us in on 0427 767 767. Going to look at the Essendon GWS game yesterday. Jeez, as a Bombers fan, I was freaking out.
It was a frightening first half.
Did you think you were a genuine chance to lose, Jordan?
I did, because not only were we like GWS playing well, I think defensively we were like Tate Pears was getting absolutely monstered by Jeremy Cameron, and there was just with the amount of players being rested, I just thought that we weren't a chance to win.
I was like a lot of people, and I was, to be honest, waiting for the North Melbourne Port Adelaide game to start. So I've thrown on the GWS Essendon game, and they kicked the first 2 goals, and I'm like, this is just a novelty. They kicked 3, and I thought, oh, they're looking all right. And then for that, I think the first quarter of the North Melbourne game, I was constantly flicking back, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, there was zero intensity from Essendon. They were walking to contests. Even someone like, and I really don't want to do this because I love him so much, Joe Watson, why were you walking to contests? Why? That's not you. It's not you, Joe. Why?
They don't take it seriously enough, and that's... It was really evident until GWS basically ran out of legs, and then Essendon's "I'll sort of try" was enough.
I think Essendon came back at half-time and said, okay, yep, something's not going right here. We need to figure out what's going wrong. And what was going wrong for them was their scoring efficiency. The scoring inefficiency was terrible in the first half for Essendon, and that's what really contributed to GWS being able to get over them so quickly.
Yeah, I think they also won a lot of ball. They led contested possessions at half-time. They led marks. They were holding on to it. They led clearances, and it was surreal for that first... until Essendon got going at the start of the third quarter, it really looked like they were going to get rolled. They looked deplorable going forward. At one stage, they were 33 inside 50s for 4 goals. There was that element of, and I've said this about Essendon before, that they do have a spread of goal kickers, and it's never the same person, but when they've entered the 50, and when Essendon have been ordinary, especially last year, it's when they've made no effort to make space for each other, and that was evident yesterday. It just bombed it, and there were 2 people went up, and the ball spilled down, and GWS ran it out. That happened for like the first half.
Well, Sheedy's really instilled a fantastic defensive game to the Giants. They were willing to run off their opponent and come in for the intercept. Tim Moore, Steve Gillum, and Jacob Townsend was absolutely fantastic on Joe Watson. When the Bombers went into the 50, they were just able to chop it off so easily.
I really wish that GWS won that game, so I could just say That's what you get for resting Heppel and ruining my Supercoach and Dream Team sides. Because, you can't afford to rest players anymore this year. I mean, Fremantle did it against Hawthorn a few years ago back at Tasmania. They rested something like 10 players and got absolutely monstered, but that was in preparation for finals, so you can kind of excuse it, but you can't afford to do it with the expansion sides anymore.
I think the expansion sides, this is going to be the year where if you are off your game, we saw what happened to Carlton last year. You come and take it, you go up there to the Gold Coast or even Sydney, you treat it like a holiday, you're going to get beat. That's going to happen now. You can't do that anymore.
Respect to GWS, but I think Essendon did take it a bit easy. They do have Geelong next week, and that's obviously going to be a much more intense game, so I think that they would have just been like,
Etihad Stadium where 25,000 people are going to get locked out because the AFL is so stubborn. As if the AFL move things.
Oh, please. Never know.
I don't think so.
No way.
Jeremy Cameron kicked 6 goals yesterday, and he's set the club's goal-kicking record for most goals in a game. Tom Scully, a much maligned player, he was fantastic in the first half, but then dropped off a lot in the second half. I think he only had 4 possessions in the second half. I think he's a good player, but he definitely deserves all the criticism that he gets, because when your team's under siege and you get 4 possessions in the second half, that's absolutely deplorable for a man that's on $1 million.
Yeah. He played well on Stanton early on, but Stanton, of course, went off. What was it? Did he have a tear?
It looked like he did either a groin or a high quad, and he came back on for a bit, and then they subbed him off, just being, I think, more precaution. I think he'll probably miss maybe 2 weeks, but look, that's we're not really sure on that at this moment.
I think what I loved the most about GWS yesterday, just before we move on to the next game, I think that they were outnumbered. When they were outnumbered at contests, they ran so hard to get there, or they ran so hard to pressure the next kick, and that's something that once they improve on that, it's not going to be a pushover, and that was something that's good to see that, as Jordan mentioned before, Sheedy is trying to implement at Greater Western Sydney. I think moving on, we'll go to the game, the late starting afternoon weirdo time slot, Adelaide versus Hawthorn. It was a contest for 4 quarters. We thought Hawthorn were going to skip away early. Their spread absolutely destroyed them. Players like Stephen Hill were running riot in that first quarter. It got to a 28-point lead early in the second. They kicked that first goal, and then the tide turned. No one saw it coming. I don't think anyone did. Adelaide hit back hard. Players like Dangerfield lifted, and it was just a weird game of football to watch.
I mean, Adelaide really like Gunston, don't they? every time he got near the ball. It was a good atmosphere for the game. Speaking of amazing umpiring, how woeful was that Scott Thompson free kick? Did you see it?
Yeah, of course I saw it, and I don't go for Adelaide, but I felt like throwing the remote at the TV. That was disgusting.
Place a hand on his bicep. Oh, no, can't do that.
It boggles. It really does. It's confusing now. I don't understand the rules. I really don't.
Jeff Geeshan said you can't do any sort of pushing in a marking contest. What game is this?
Is it no offence to basketball, because it's a good sport, but that's the rules that they have in place. The rules that we have in place here enable contact. It's a contact sport.
And then, bringing him up again, Gunston did essentially much worse. He shoved the Adelaide defender in the chest when he was in the goal square. No free for that, of course. It's farcical how inconsistent the umpiring has been on umpire appreciation.
I was just about to say that. Umpires, we do like you most of the time, even though it's umpire appreciation round, so thank you for what you do. Without you, we wouldn't be able to have the game that we do.
All the discussions.
Take it any way you want.
Well, you fill up so much of our airtime, umpires. Thank you so much. You make it so much easier for us.
I do like the rules that sort of protect the umpires from abuse, like handing out 50-metre penalties if you abuse the umpires, because that's the only way that the younger generation are going to want to be umpires. They're not going to keep turning up week in, week out if they're going to get abused by, the local leagues and that sort of thing.
Instead, they just get abused by the fans.
Yeah. But it's not up close and personal.
I think the blame in this, maybe we do take it. We do take it a bit hard on the umpires. I would like to see someone like Jeff Geeshan cop more of the fired. That'd be fantastic.
Why can't he be held accountable for what he does?
I really don't know.
He's got a free pass.
He does have a free pass, and people like the Rules Committee who continuously change the rules, and I believe that does have a strong effect on umpire interpretations. and it just creates more of a mess, and it's just going to end up on the feet of the umpires at the end of the day. And when you break it down, yeah, we do knock them, but can you really lay all that blame at their feet where they are in a constant... Because they've been watching the game for years, and it would confuse them as well.
The problem is the sensationalism of the umpires. I mean, the best umpired games are the ones that you don't notice the umpires at all. And in the Collingwood-St Kilda game, they mic'd up the main umpire and were having a chat to him as he was, getting ready to bounce the ball, and, after a goal, and saying like, "Oh, have you umpired before? What's going on?" Like...
But in that umpire's defence, that's Channel 7.
Yeah, it's it wasn't Mark Stevick's fault. I thought he did a pretty good job.
No,
actually.
He did do a good job, actually. I didn't notice the umpires on Friday night.
So, that's... You shouldn't notice them. That's the problem.
Yeah. Back to the game. What's going on with Buddy Franklin?
Oh.
2 rounds in a row, kept goalless. What's going on? I read a stat somewhere yesterday. I can't remember where, but he has not been goalless 2 rounds in a row since his debut in 2005.
Yep, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Rounds 5 and 6.
Rounds 5 and 6. He looked really ordinary. Last week I thought he was unlucky not to have a goal.
I think he might get reported.
Well, yeah, that was a very high elbow. He will face scrutiny. I don't know if he'll get weeks, but it will get looked at. I think when things don't go his way, and this is a similar criticism that's put at the feet of Jack Rewalt that I don't think he's put enough on Lance Franklin. When it doesn't go his way, he doesn't work hard enough defensively. And I don't want to say he sooks, because I don't really think I've seen Franklin sook on the level that Jack Rewalt has. No offence, Jack, you're a fantastic player. But he really doesn't work hard enough the other way when it isn't going his way. When he kicks goals and he's up and about, he works, but when it's not and the team has to buckle down and defend as a unit, he's a link in the chain.
Talia and Thompson have destroyed him 2 weeks in a row, which is, great plaudits for them. Probably Scott Thompson's probably AA at this point.
Yeah, he's had a fantastic start to the year.
And just on Buddy, came out in the Herald Sun today that Brisbane have thrown their hat in the ring for his services, apparently, with Black set to retire at the end of this season.
They've only paid 95% of their salary cap, so they've got plenty of money to spend.
Jeez, that's blowing a lot of cap. Would he fit in at Brisbane?
Absolutely, they need him.
They do need him.
Would he want to go there?
Would he want to go there?
They're not going to win a premiership in the time that Buddy will be there.
They can't exactly sell it to him. Yeah, come to us. We might win games.
Well, they do have the midfield delivery for him, and he is the main target. So he doesn't obviously he's got Brown there who can give him a chop out if need be. And they're building a fantastic team, but if he's going to do it, he's probably going to have to go on maybe a 3-4 year deal.
Yeah, I think that's the way. Yeah, he'd need an extended contract. I think we'll move on because we'll end up talking about Lance Franklin for the next 25 minutes, and it always ends that way. There was one game which wasn't exactly aesthetically pleasing. It frustrated me after a quarter, but the Gold Coast, they were kept at arm's length for most of the evening by Fremantle. It was a pretty stock standard game of football. Michael Walters is upping his reputation in the competition as one of the best small forwards in my eyes. He was fantastic last night. He worked hard. He got rewarded on the scoreboard. He won a lot of his own ball, and he applied pressure. That's all you really need to ask for a small forward.
Not the best small forward, is it? In your opinion?
In my opinion, at the moment. Oh, you all know what the answer's going to be.
I believe he's better than Lindsay Thomas. Just to give you a bit of a rev up.
That's a bit. No, that's fair. I would say he's played well enough in the last, not only this season, but even last season of what I saw of him. Even against North Melbourne, when I watched him in person, you don't really get an opportunity here in Melbourne to see Fremantle live. But when I did, he was brilliant, and he, in a very contested game of football on a very small ground, held his own and found his own space, and he worked hard. And again, that's all you really ask from a small forward.
He's doing very well this year.
I think also, because I'm not sure who else of you watched the game, I think it was a 4-quarter effort by Fremantle, and yeah, it was only against the Gold Coast, but it's a long travel from Perth to up there, and I think a 4-quarter effort has been what's required of Fremantle. They had massive slabs. They have massive slabs in their game, especially the game against Hawthorn, where they completely crap the bed in the first quarter and the game was over. Hawthorn kicked the first 5 goals and they just couldn't arrest that lead for the rest of the game, and it was pretty much done. I think that's all Fremantle really need to take out of this, that they need to keep at it for 4 quarters to break down oppositions, and that game plan will work.
Yeah, and we keep seeing glimpses from Gold Coast young players. I mean, Jaeger O'Meara was, again, very good. And Gary Apple was his best, again, trying to drag across the line. Crowley did a very good job on him, sort of nullified his game-breaking influence, but he was still, leading from the front.
Jesse Lonergan came in for his first game yesterday. Didn't have a lot of influence offensively, only had the 9 possessions, but he had 7 tackles and 17 pressure racks in a first game. That's fantastic. I think Gold Coast is really building a great midfield group. But anyway, let's move on. Text us in on 0427 767 767.
Yeah, we've got a couple of texts as well.
We'll just read those out before we move on.
Yes, our first one was from Aiden, a couple from Aiden. First one, with the lopsided free kick count, probably teams are not disciplined in tackles, pushing in the back, etc. I appreciate the umpires on this round. So we've got one appreciative supporter.
That is fair enough. I think there were...
He is a North supporter. So.
No, he was right. No, there were... I think this week, obviously there are free kicks that are there, but I think it's more the interpretation and the lack of consistency. And again, it's really the fundamental criticisms that are based upon the umpiring association.
The next text was from Aidan again about shifting games. If the AFL didn't move the Geelong St Kilda game to the MCG back in 2009, with both being 13-0 at the time, the AFL never will.
Yeah, no, they're not moving that game. Even if it's a chance to make them more revenue, which they like, they won't move it. I think we'll move on to a very, very confusing topic that a lot of people are finding its twisted nature, the way sport blends in with politics, very confusing, very unless you do solid reading on it, it's very hard to interpretate. The Essendon Football Club are currently under investigation. Actually today marks the 3-month anniversary that they came forward and said that they will throw open their doors and let ASADA investigate for any irregular practices.
Do we need to give them a gift for the 3-month anniversary? Or?
Well, what do you give as a 3-month gift?
Some peptides,
at a reduced price.
Okay, hold on, Essendon fans. I did not sanction that joke.
It had to be said. I mean,
it had to.
You're like a kid in a candy store with this. You love the
Oh, no. Listen, I do. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'll say this. Yes, as a North Melbourne supporter, I may have issues with Essendon, but I'll be completely honest. I really don't want to see this. This is...
It's bad for the game.
It's awful for the game. Forget, this is awful for the game. This is awful for all codes that are being looked at. This is... If players get done, I really feel for the Essendon players at the moment. They wouldn't have no idea. Well, they have some idea, but they don't know what the end outcome of this is. And I think...
You feel for the players. That's the main thing. I mean, the case is, even if the players were totally ignorant to what they were taking, and maybe they even if they couldn't have done anything else to sort of avoid it, there was a case with a shot putter a couple of years ago where her drink was spiked by her coach with performance-enhancing drugs, and she got a ban for a year because of it. She had absolutely no idea that was the situation, and even the ignorance wasn't enough to get her off, and that's quite sad to see when the athlete has absolutely no impact on their performance. But the end result is, did the player's performance get improved by what they took?
Well,
and that's
the substances are not performance enhancing; they are recovery enhancing. So when you look at it like that, the substances that they allegedly took, that were allegedly, again, we have to use that word a lot in the next 10 minutes because we don't want a lawsuit, allegedly took, they enhanced recovery. And to quote sports doctor, fitness is like a phone book. It's layers. For an AFL player to run out a game of football, you need to run out a whole game, you need 4 years of pre-seasons to do that. What's been sort of questioned towards Essendon is that they gained in 6 months 2 years worth. And that's where the issue and the questions are being
I
asked.
think a major problem of this whole thing is that it's a massive case of he said, she said. There is just, every morning I wake up and I see another article about something that someone said, or Carlton recorded something, it's just getting a bit ridiculous, to be honest.
I think all parties, James Hird has hired his own lawyers and his own, we'll call him a spin doctor because that's what they are. He's hired his own spin doctor. The Essendon Football Club have their own lawyers. They've hired their own spin doctor. Dank's got his own lawyers and he's hired his own spin doctor. That's what really makes this up, because we're not going to hear straight talk. We're going to hear spinned phrases. We're going to hear twisted words, and that only confuses what is already a confusing. And just on the Carlton staffer, my concern with all this is that because there were a lot of rumours last year about the Essendon Football Club. There were a lot of clubs talking behind the scenes, theorising how could they gain that much. It wasn't just Carlton. It was a widely discussed thing. And my concern is that Carlton were more aware of well, they didn't know it was illegal, but they knew something was a bit wrong.
Yeah, they knew more than what the AFL knew.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
How can clubs know more than what the AFL know?
And that's what we need to find out, I think, is another important aspect, because I think, especially the way Andrew Dimitri on Friday came out with his scurrilous mongering quote, I think if it turns out that other clubs were aware of things and they turned out to be right, he has no place to question, and especially after what happened with Adelaide and the lack of, in many people's opinions, sufficient punishment for the whole Kurt Tippett thing, the denial of tanking, the complete denial that it ever happened, yet they fined the Melbourne Football Club, and then now this. I don't think in the last 10 months, if you didn't already question, I didn't necessarily question Andrew Dimitrio's position, but if it turns out that clubs knew more before the AFL did, and the AFL aren't providing a sufficient way to regulate sports science, then this also falls on their doorstep as well.
It's making the AFL look really bad.
It is, and I think not only does it make the AFL look bad, it also
makes the game look bad.
Everything looks bad.
The AFL's in the damage control. Did you see Dimitri contacted the head of Kia to put their fears to rest because he was fearful that they may renege on their deal?
He had every right to be fearful. From my understanding, Kia have behind the scenes pledged that if there is any guilt at the Essendon Football Club, that they will remove their sponsorship. And I don't want to say, or I don't want to speculate, because I don't know what True Value Solar, their other major sponsor, is. I'm not sure. But considering Kia is it's very prominent in the Asia Pacific area, this is a WADA issue, and it's a world doping issue. They don't want to be seen in a country where there's a massive, large car market associated with Essendon if these claims are found true. And I think it's the only. And I think also on Essendon, I feel as if that, and I don't want to say, a lot of people are saying that this isn't in James Hird's nature, or he wouldn't do this or he wouldn't do that. I'm really not interested in that. I'm really interested in David Evans, the administration of the Essendon Football Club, because basically what's happened, there's been, regardless of if players were known to have taken this or this or this, or if they're found guilty or if they were illegal, at the very minimum, Essendon will be getting a $2 to $3 million fine, and someone's going to get sacked from the admin. That's the minimum that Essendon are looking at. They're not going to get out of this unscathed because they've made the AFL look stupid. You don't make the AFL look stupid. That's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. Evans has finally stuck his neck out in the past couple of days. There's been conjecture over whether the alleged drug taking last year had a carry-on effect this year. He said absolutely not, and we can prove that there was no lasting effects onto this year. So he's finally put his head out. But Ben, I agree with you. I think that if there's going to be people to go, he's going to be one of the first. And
I think a lot of people say, oh, it's not in James, as I said before, it's not in James Hird's nature. From the way Evans is spoken about outside of football, he's spoken in a high regard. He's spoken of someone who's very responsible. He's spoken of someone who is usually on top of his own affairs. And people say that James Hird, I'm willing to reserve judgment on James Hird until more's proven. David Evans and Robson, they are in positions in which they are very close to losing their job. Very close.
Speaking about the 3-month anniversary that you were talking about, it's kind of weird to see the initial reaction of Evans and Hurd when this broke, and Hurd especially saying, "I'm shocked, I have no idea how this could have happened, blah, blah, blah." And then slowly little bits of information drip out, and his position of "I knew absolutely nothing" kind of gets questioned.
I think what concerns me about this, because as you said, there was the initial drop, and there was 2 weeks where it was just this constant, non-stop. This is what happened. There were waivers. This is the alleged type of drugs, and then we had 2 months of nothing. We had 2 months of nothing. Then we had 2 months of dead air, and then since April 11th, when that article surfaced that James Hurd was allegedly getting injected with hexarelin, a banned substance, and then it's sort of come out from there that the AOD allegedly was injected, and then all those sorts of things, and that's just the last 2-3 weeks. I really fear for Essendon, because this could go on for 4 or 5 months until we have an Asada thing. If this is what we know and is being alleged in just the last 2-3 weeks, what's it going to look like in 2 months? This is really concerning at the rate information is coming out. And I have my own strong suspicions that the information isn't just coming out of Dank. It's probably not coming out of Asada, because contractors from Asada face 2 years of jail time for any breach. It's football. No one's going to face 2 years of jail time if caught. There are lots of leaks out of Essendon, and from what I can see, half of them put the club in a positive light. The other half look as if that these leaks are coming out. How do I phrase this without getting myself in trouble? That's what I want to work. Half of them look like they're leaks that are undermining people from within the club, look dissatisfied with the way that the club is dealing with it, and therefore they're talking to press.
It's not a united front. I mean, people are working for their own individual agendas, what they think is right. And the board, I would say, isn't completely unified.
I'm going to say the board isn't completely unified. I'm going to leave it at that.
I think I speak for many people when I say that I hope this just gets resolved soon. I know it's not going to get resolved soon, but I'm really just tired of waking up and hearing about this, hearing about it before I go to sleep, hearing about it all day pretty much. I'm just over it. And I think it'll have a toll on the players. We haven't seen it have a toll on the players as of yet. Obviously
you'll see it this week. They go into interviews this week. It will happen. I don't expect them to win against Geelong this week. I expect, especially the way, and I really hope Essendon comply, because if you look at the NRL investigation into Cronulla, they are putting up every brick wall, and if they are found guilty, Cronulla, they've got 6 month bans if they cooperate. If considering they're not cooperating, if they're found guilty, they're going to get 2 years. No questions asked. Essendon, and they are cooperating, and it needs to continue that way. They can't let lawyers or spin doctors get in the way, because Essendon, the best way out for Essendon, if all these things happen, is if they cooperate. And I think on that note, we'll go to some SYN messages.
And now a message for our Kiwi neighbours.
It's no secret we've had a part to play in our Trans-Tasman rivalry over the years. Sure, we've made one too many sheep jokes and giggled at your love for fush and chops. And you've returned with some witty remarks about the All Blacks trumping the Wallabies and our pride in dominating a football code that only we play. Yes, we have taken ownership over your mighty Pavlova and Crowded House, but this time you've gotten it right by legislating equal marriage rights before we have. Australia, it's time to fight for marriage equality. Join the Equal Love Rally on Saturday, May 11 from 1 p.m. at the State Library of Victoria in support of equal marriage rights. Bring your mates, family, supporters of equality, your cat, your dog, your sheep. Hey, it's power in numbers. This time, we will make it happen. The Equal Love Rally on Saturday, May 11. See equallove.info.
This week on Get Cereal.
The guy was piercing my ear. The worst part was that you have to wait there and let it just flare up. And I was so itchy, and he goes, go in the waiting room and just pretend that this is what the allergist said to me.
Yeah, just go put your rash on everyone.
Just go in the waiting room and pretend you're not itchy. You have to put your acting skills on.
Pretend you're not itchy.
Yeah, just sit there.
It's like my whole childhood, pretending I'm not itchy.
Get Cereal.
Get Cereal.
Get Cereal?
6 to 9 a.m. weekdays only on SYN.
Like what you hear? Get in on the action. Head to sin.org.au for more info. Sin Radio, where young people run the show.
And we're back on Bound for Glory. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, Bound for Glory FM. Facebook, just Bound for Glory. And keep texting us in with your thoughts, 0427 767 767 or sin.org.au via the free thing there. It's a free text as well, so don't be worried about it.
Thanks to Daniel for texting him before. He's pumping up our tyres.
Yeah, very
and
good.
said he loves us, so thanks for that, Daniel.
We love you too, Daniel.
Yeah.
Just going into the previews now, we've got 3 games on today.
Yeah, we have starting at the SCG, the early game at 1 o'clock. Sydney, they host the Brisbane Lions. Sydney just travelling nicely there. They're looking to build to some form. I don't think they're playing at the height of their powers at the moment, the heights that they reached at the end of last season. I think it's a slow build. I think just what I see from that team, it's your standard Sydney team. I mean, you've got Kennedy, O'Keefe, Parker, McGlynn, Jeddah, McVeigh. That's a solid midfield. They're not only a midfield that plays well defensively, they not only chop out and help out the defence, but they can kick goals. As someone just pointed out to me, one of our co-hosts, Ethan, in the background, McVeigh, he's their leading goal kicker for Sydney, and he's starting on a half-back flank.
They're bringing in another goal kicker today, making his debut, Jed Lamb. He was an early draft pick, I think, 2 years ago. He's a fantastic kick. I think he'll add a lot to the team. Really skillful player. I'm very much looking forward to him playing.
Yeah, definitely. Sydney to run it out easily. They've got Hanbury as well, a rising star winner. So,
who looks moving slowly to, again, the heights of... If he adds and grows into the player that we all think he's going to grow into, that's just going to be such a dynamic midfield, and it's really hard to beat the Swans. They're too good at the SCG. I think, they'll do it in a canter.
Yep. Yeah, Swans by 40 for me.
Yeah, I'm going Swans in a bit of a rout.
I'm going to go the Swans as well. I think they're just a bit more impressive, and Brisbane aren't doing too well so far.
Speaking of not doing too well, Carlton Melbourne.
Yes.
I think you're referring to Melbourne.
We've actually come good, Joyce.
I know. But, this should be an absolute demolition. Murphy will run riot.
I think, considering there's no Mitch Clark, is Jack Watt... I don't think Jack Watts is playing. I think Jack Watts is injured.
Hamstring, yeah.
Yep, hamstring.
Maxi
as
Gawn.
he just gestures to in the corner, his own hamstring. Our own doctor.
Dr. Meldrum.
Dr. Meldrum. Yeah, I think... Melbourne are going to get flogged. There's going to be a 100-point loss.
I paid attention to the Blues reserves game last week. Jared Keisha comes in for Carazzo. He's been very good form last couple of weeks. Tom Bell, fantastic. David Allard, pretty good. Jared Waite comes in, even though I thought he didn't play too well. He only kicked 2 behinds, but he presented well, which that was from the coach. He believed that he presented well. So, look, he's obviously those guys will add another dimension to the Blues, and really looking forward to Jared Keisha making his debut.
And Jared Waite is back as well.
Yeah, just with Waite, I just hope that he just gets through unscathed. I don't care if he kicks 10 goals or 1 or none. I just want him to get through unscathed.
Is he playing on the wing or up forward?
Up forward.
Probably up forward, to start with.
How many layers of bandage is he going to be in when he takes
It's going to be a mummy. You just have a slot for his eyes, I reckon.
He really needs to get himself right if Carlton are to look not necessarily a force, but a team that can consolidate itself in the top 8. He really needs, and I don't think Hampson is enough, or even it's just not enough. Those players will have down games. You need someone who's got a bit of experience.
And here's a stat as well. Carlton's kicked 73 goals this season, 60 of which have come from players under 190 centimetres.
That's a lot.
So lack of key tools.
You want your tools kicking more than that, yeah. And Melbourne had large scale changes as well, 6 changes, I believe. So we might see some enthusiasm from the young players. Dean Kent is one young player that's coming through, but
fantastic last name. There is some headline potential in that last name.
What a Kent.
Blues by 100.
Yeah.
I think that the Blues will do well on the MCG, show their how good they are with running and their midfield. So it'll be good to see them hopefully get over the D's by a lot.
Yeah, this game's my super coach saviour. I'm hoping that Chris Yaron can pump out 160 and save me this week.
No Gibbs though.
No Gibbs. No.
Killer.
Last game, West Coast Bulldogs
over at Patterson's. This could get ugly. This could get really ugly. There's a lot of West Coast. They've got a lot of players back this week, West Coast.
They do, but they're not that impressive this year, the Eagles. I thought they were. I had them in the grand final, but...
Well, we all have to remember this time last year, Hawthorn were doing pretty awful, and we didn't think that Hawthorn were going to make it to the grand final, and look what they did. So I think that West Coast is going to be the 2013 Hawthorn. So I think they're still in it, and they're going to come back.
And the Eagles get back the big palm tree, Nick Nat. Good old Nick Nat.
Wellingham as well.
Wellingham, yeah, makes his debut.
Isn't Kerr back as well? Was he?
He played, but he
named
just
on the
didn't do
bench.
that much.
Yeah. I'm really being impressed with Jake Stringer from the Bulldogs. I wouldn't say he's a key forward. He's more of he's 190 odd centimetres, 191, but he's a very big unit weight wise. He's been presenting really well, and obviously Liam Jones played quite well as well last week. But I just don't see the Bulldogs getting anywhere close in this game.
I
agree.
Yeah, I really hope that they do, because this is some pretty average games today. Just looking at these two teams, all 6 teams on paper, lined up against their respective opponents, there's going to be some beltings today.
Yeah.
I really hope the Dogs can push the Eagles, because it's going to get really boring.
Just think of the neutral supporters teams. Come on, put in some effort. But yeah, no, it's a bit of a lacklustre way to end the week, really. A lot of decent games yesterday, which was
good.
Spoiled for choice.
Yes.
Josh Kennedy, of course, kicked 10 against the Bulldogs last year, and also, again, my Supercoach saviour, so do it again. Do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Kick it to
17 in the past 2 against the Dogs, so they better watch out.
Yeah, but this has been a year of trends ending, and Franklin kicked 0 against North Melbourne, so yeah, we'll hopefully have him kicking a lot this week and break that non-trend. That makes sense. Anyway,
I think we've fallen apart in the last minute.
Yeah.
We're North Melbourne.
Again, follow us on Twitter, Bound for Glory FM. Follow us like us on Facebook, Bound for Glory.
Make sure you check out Bound for Glory News as well for all the articles, opinion, fantasy and Rising Stars related. So
under new management.
Under new
management. Everyone, please congratulate the new Chief of Staff of Bound for Glory News, Jordan Kano. Please.
Very good
Chef.
job. Get lost, acting chef. But yeah, make sure you follow them on Twitter as well. Bound for Glory, the number 4 news, and Bound for Glory News on Facebook as well. And make sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, as well as the Sports Desk.
Yes. Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. With myself, Ash and Jordan, and we'll be talking about all things sport. But I think that's about all we've got time for this week. Yeah, enjoy the games this week. Hope you enjoyed listening to us, and catch you soon.
I'm invincible. I'm paying money. The girl's happy. She's got no money. I got my rocks off. Oh, how good is this?